recent decision by the U.S. Supreme Court in not hearing the Peruta versus California case, or the Peruta case out of California. I wanted to, say some words about that. One, just don't get your panties in a bunch. Cool your jets. The fact that they did not hear Peruta is not in any way a nail in the coffin for the Second Amendment. It feels bad, but hey, you can't win them all. But you need to remember that in order for the Supreme Court to even hear a case, any case, 5 of the 8 justices have to agree just to hear the case, right? And that's because they get so many requests. So part of it is workload management. But in this case, 5 of the justices didn't agree. 2 actually had an opinion that it should have been heard, and the fact that the citizens have a right to keep and bear arms. That was Gorsuch, who was the newest justice, and Clarence Thomas. But the Peruta case was strictly about a state's ability to control and manage concealed carry. Concealed carry. Okay? It was a very narrow kind of case. Had it gone to the Supreme Court, had the Supreme Court agreed to hear it, and if there had been a positive ruling by the Supreme Court, for all intents and purposes, that pretty much would have forced California, and all states like it, to become a shall issue state. Now, I don't know if that played in the minds of the justices and decided, I don't want to deal with that, but we can speculate. So, but keep in mind, the big landmark ruling by the Supreme Court, a case they did decide to hear, was Heller versus Washington, D.C. The Heller case specifically said that the Second Amendment protects the individual's right to firearms without having any association with a militia, well regulated or not. It said it is your right, and that it could not be to own and possess a firearm. It did not rule or have any ruling on outside of the home, but are specifically focused on in the home. So now we have a ruling that says your right has nothing to do with the militia or being in the military or anything like that. You have that right, period. So that was a big one, Heller versus D.C. The next big one, which came 2 years after Heller, was the McDonald case that the Supreme Court has. McDonald versus the City of Chicago, right? City of Chicago got spanked because what this decision said is that the individual has a right to keep and bear arms for self-defense. So what condition with respect to the Second Amendment is left? The right to an individual to keep and bear arms outside of the home. Once the Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court ever hears a case about that and rules that the individual has a right to keep and bear arms for self-defense, because it's already been for self-defense, and the right to keep and bear arms is already there, without having anything to do with the militia, well regulated or not, the next one is, well, what about carrying in public? If the Supreme Court ever rules that the individual has a right to keep and bear arms outside of the home, then the whole idea of shall issue, in other words, yes, the state will still be able to regulate concealed or not, but it will be shall issue. There won't be this sheriff says no, that sheriff says yes, and so forth. And then that would pave the way, of course, for national reciprocity. So we have 2 of the 3 legs of the stool, and we're waiting for that one. That one is where the Supreme Court rules about outside of the home. The Peruta case was not that case. It was about concealed carry. I'm not sure that that case should have even gone forward because the impact wouldn't have been that big a deal. But That's where we are now. So what I leave you with is continue to fight the same fight we've been doing at the state level. State by state, we are making great progress. We've made great progress with concealed carry, and we're making great progress, even better progress really, with this idea of constitutional or permit-less carry. They're not the same, but if you're a resident within a state that has implemented that, it feels the same. So give that some thought. Don't lose hope. Stay in the fight. And as always, thanks for watching. Carry on.